Welcome back, Mistakes listeners. This is Dave, and man, it's good to be back. And we've got a number of episodes lined up for you guys. This episode actually is interesting because Todd and I decided to discuss the concept that sometimes your kids might like things that you just don't like. And we get into this big debate, and actually we extended this to 2 episodes. So coming right now, we've got this first episode that was recorded on September 5th. 2016. This is episode 72. And as always, you can follow us on Facebook at Parenting Mistakes, and you can follow us on Twitter at Parent Mistakes. And of course, you can email us at hotmail@parentingmistakes.com. And as always, sit back and enjoy the show. Well, Todd, it's been a while. It's been like, what, 2 weeks?
Well, in podcast land, there is no time.
Oh, is there or is there not? I suppose anybody can pick up a podcast on Podomatic or on iTunes.
Or on YouTube.
Or on YouTube at any time.
They could.
Support us on Patreon if they wanted to at any time.
Yes.
Give us feedback and reviews at any time.
Parenting mistakes at hotmail.com.
Yeah, very good. I actually have noticed recently that a lot of our popular shows are still those crazy Disney shows. Have you noticed that?
People like the Disney.
They do. We should probably review a few more Disney TV shows at some point here.
We probably should.
As we're going into the school year, we're going to head to the... topics are always fun, but they're a little more strenuous, right?
They are.
Yes. So I've got an old Dave Kidney story.
Uh-oh.
That does actually really align ourselves with today's subject.
Okay.
Okay. So I was 12 or 13. No, 14. 14. I had been a Star Trek fan for about 2 years.
Okay.
This is my Star Trek story. What is it they usually call it? When I get up and I confess something about myself. And it's, testimonial. This is my Star Trek testimonial. Sorry. Do you know about my Star Trek testimonial? Like how I got into Star Trek?
No, I don't think I do.
Yeah. So, summer of 1982, I went back to Chicago to visit some friends, and they said, hey, let's go see this movie Star Trek 2. And I walked into the theater, and when I walked out, I was a changed man. I could not get enough of Star Trek. I couldn't believe that anything like this had existed. And I guess I was born with a science fiction gene. Okay? So when I came out of the womb, I had science fiction in my DNA. It was just going to happen.
I wasn't aware that scientists had discovered a science fiction gene. But they discovered a bunch of other strange genes, so I suppose...
There's some kids that come out and they're sports prone, right? There's some kids that come out and they're, business prone. I came out and I was science fiction prone, right?
Okay.
I'm going to absorb science fiction. I love it.
Okay.
So when I saw Star Trek, bam. My mother and father do not share this DNA.
Okay.
Right?
Correct.
So it comes to around 1985, right before Star Trek 4. Now you do remember this. Why in 7th and 8th grade, all I could talk about was Star Trek 4. And Star Trek 4 coming out. That was like main, boss beak, Star Trek 4. You do.
I don't remember specifically that it was Star Trek 4, but I do remember you having
you remember, yes,
a deep interest in the Star Trek universe.
In
fact, I think we did a project together. I think it was for Bible class, and I think you incorporated some Star Trek art.
Okay,
into the project.
There's so many science fiction memories that you bring up for me.
Yeah,
you're right. I'm pretty sure I did. I don't remember it all. I remember taking. Forget it. Anyway, so I say to my mother, "Hey, there is a Star Trek convention that is occurring in Spokane, Washington, and it's gonna have George Takei. It's gonna have Nichelle Nichols. It's gonna have DeForest Kelley. So that's going to have, Dr. McCoy, Uhura, right, and Sulu, right? Oh, okay. And to top it off, it was going to have Gene Roddenberry. Okay. So the creator of Star Trek was going to be there, the Hayayama per se. This would be my trip to Nepal, right? So my mother reluctantly agrees to go to this Star Trek convention with me for 2 days. Now, I know there are other kids that would have parents that would just drop them off, maybe at the age of 14 or 15 and say, get out of here, kid, and just be here for the next 2 days. Okay. But that was not how my parents functioned. They felt like I needed supervision on this particular trip. And I can tell you that my mother was completely out of her mind bored. Right? Because she had no interest in this. It would, pretty much the reverse of this would be to go see the Days of Our Lives convention, and I was taking my mother to go see that, right?
Yes.
Can you imagine going to see a soap opera convention which you'd never actually watched a day of soap operas, and it's to have people geek out and goober out on the soap opera convention? Well, that's what it was like for my mother to take me to this particular event.
What a nice mom you have.
What an incredible gift, and what an incredible mom I do have. And here's the worst part about it, is that the most interesting, entertaining, like, we'd have to go to these talks, every talk I had to go to, right? They're going to talk about season 1 of Next Generation. They're going to talk about some clues that were hidden in Star Trek 4. And, DeForest Kelley's going to get up and talk about what it was like to be Dr. McCoy. But those guys all had very scripted, rehearsed events. The most interesting guys and the very least interesting guys were the Star Trek comic book guys that could get up there and just kind of freelance talk. Kind of like how you and I podcast. Right? Whatever comes out of our mouth. No. Whatever comes out of our mouth, it's coming out of our mouth. Right?
I think that's pretty obvious, yes.
And I can only imagine I think at that time, 42-year-old mother just dying on the inside as she listening to some comic book guy talks about how he penned, Mr. Spock in issue 33, right? I am utterly absorbed, and I can't get enough of these guys. They're the most interesting guys up there. And for my mother, oh my word, what a nightmare, right? This would be like you'd wake up in the middle of the night saying, it was a nightmare. I'm so glad I'm out of that, right? The most dour conversation, conference type speech you'd had to sit through, and my mom did it for me.
Okay.
And I don't think at the time that I realized what kind of sacrifice my mom was making for me. But yeah. And then, of course, just to kind of tie it all up, these guys, they had become legends in my mind, right? So when I went to go talk to Gene Roddenberry about signing my Star Trek 4 poster, I was like, right? I get up to George Takei. I could hardly talk, right? My mother's like, come on, Dave, you can get up there, talk to these guys. On the trip home from Spokane to Seattle, because at that time we lived in Seattle, we ended up riding in first class. It's another long story. And right across the way from us was DeForest Kelley. He was actually in first class riding with us on the way home. I had Dr. McCoy riding in the same area as me, right? So I'm like, I can't do anything, Mom. I'm like shell-shocked, right? And my mother actually walked over to him, dragging me along, and said, this is my son. He really, really appreciates your show, and he just wanted to say thank you for all the things you've done. My mom did this for me on something that she absolutely just had no interest in. Right?
Okay.
So that's my story. How does this relate to our topic today? How does this relate to our topic, Todd?
Well, it relates to this topic because there are going to be times in our parenting lives where our kids are into things that we're not super into. And that can be a struggle because, as you talked about, your mom, gracious woman that she was and is, took you to this thing.
Yes, not a thing. It's Star Trek convention.
Oh, sorry. Now, I know you told me a story, but I'm interested in another story.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tell me another story. Because I believe recently you took your daughters to a Seattle Mariners baseball game.
Oh, lordy, I did.
Now, I'm guessing that given their ages, they are not necessarily diehard fans. Like, they haven't necessarily been watching the Mariners religiously and have said, "Father, won't you please take us to a game eventually?"
Right. No, we actually have never watched or heard of any baseball in our house, so this truly was their first exposure to baseball.
Okay.
Right, and what was interesting too is that if you have a number of kids, you have kids who are not exposed to the sporting environment. We actually had to go through kind of a checklist with them, like explain to them that this is a gigantic place that's going to have thousands of people, and it's going to be incredibly loud, and you can get lost, right?
Yes.
Not that I have, well, I don't know. I mean, have you lost any kids in the stadium? I highly doubt it.
No.
But
I've
the
not.
potential is there more than ever.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Big crowd, people pressing around you.
Yeah,
Yes.
pushing you out of order and stuff like that. So we're going to talk about cell phone numbers and all that stuff. Yeah, so what's your point? We went to this game.
So I asked the question, and this leads into our topic. So this is not necessarily, we can get into this a little bit, this is not necessarily a situation where your girls right now are into this. But you definitively, at least based on your history, are not. You are
No.
not a sports guy.
I was born with the science fiction DNA gene.
Well, people can have different genes, because I have maybe a weaker science fiction gene than you.
Yes, the force is weak with you.
Yeah, I appreciate me. Well, I would say, if we're really going to split hairs here, I would say I was probably born with more of a Star Wars gene, maybe than you were.
No, I think you're more born with the Ferrari gene.
No, I've moved
More
on.
than the Star Wars gene.
Okay, so let's take your experience that you had, and let's add on the possibility that down the road your girls get more into this. Maybe they play t-ball, maybe they start hanging out with their friends, maybe the Mariners actually get good just for something different, like
Right.
sustained good. Maybe they sort of catch this bug.
Okay.
They start saying to you, "Hey, Dad, let's go to more games. Hey, Dad, the Mariners are on TV. Let's watch the Mariners."
Oh. See, and this is why we're getting into this topic, because I don't know how to answer this question. I have no desire or interest in any of this, similar to how my mother was with the Star Trek stuff.
Yes. Have you ever asked her how? I mean, you're assuming that she was bored. I don't know if she specifically told you that, but you're assuming that she was bored.
I think she said, years later, she said, I don't really remember much of it, right? It wasn't like it was that intriguing to her, and she did say that she never would have told me it was a sacrifice, right? Like, oh, it was a sacrifice of my time. I didn't want to go. She would never do that. But I think, as I recall, she basically did say that none of it really interested her. Like, I wasn't interested in it, Dave.
So here's a question. How important is it that you align your interests with your kids?
Oh, that is so tough. I wanted to align. It's really weird, Todd, because as they're growing up, and you are further down the road again, elder parent.
Yes,
But
I am.
I love, so for example, Keely and I actually align on a lot of things, and I like the fact that she and I are interested in a lot of the similar things, and I really like that, right?
Okay.
But I have a hard struggle probably with my youngest one because I do see her aligning differently. And sometimes I actually struggle with. I actually have said to Jillian, I don't really spend a whole lot of time with Maddie as much as I do with Kayleen, because Kayleen and I kind of align on more things, right?
Yes. So, if down the road you introduce them to Star Trek.
Well, I already have.
Well, I know, but
Okay, yes, in a real way.
In a real way.
We sat down.
And we could have a whole separate discussion. We're not going to get off a tangent. We could have a whole separate discussion on how
we introduce children to Star Trek? Yes.
Yes, the proper way, what order, you go all the way back to the TV. Yeah. Same thing with Star Wars and lots of other franchises that have been made and remade and remade and remade.
Yeah, let's get back on topic.
Let's say you introduce them to this down the road. They're a little older, let's say junior high, high school age, where they'd sort of be in that age range that you were in, where if they're going to get hooked on it, that's probably the range they're going to get hooked.
Right. About 14 or 15 where they're kind of going to make some, hey, I really dig this. My sister got in, okay, this is abysmal. I can't stand U2. I know that is sacrilegious to a lot of people, but she got into U2 very big when she was about 13 or 14 and has been a solid fan ever since. I think she's been to over 20 concerts of theirs or something.
All right, so you introduce your daughters down the road to Star Wars or Star Trek.
Sure.
And their reaction is meh.
Yes.
Or, even worse, yeah, I didn't really like that. I didn't really get it.
Right.
Is this going to be a dark day for you?
No, it's not. That's not. What I'm more worried about is, Dad, I love acid rock. And I want to play drums as loud as I can every day. Okay,
why are you worried about that? I mean, when you say worried, what does that mean?
Because it's not an angle I take. Loud music is not one of my favorite things. I can't actually stand loud music. Right? And it would be very hard for me to change. I'd have to change who I am to adapt to the heavy metal garage band.
Okay. Folks, this is a testament to friendship, by the way. Just sort of jumping out here for a second. There are a lot of reasons that Dave and I should not be friends.
That's true.
In this topic area, because I'm big into sports. Dave doesn't like them at all. I love heavy metal music, and he doesn't. And yeah, and yet we have a lot of other interests.
Yeah, like if you could see our cameras right now, behind Todd is tons of sports paraphernalia. Behind me is just video game paraphernalia.
Yes.
Right? Like we could be more diametrically opposed.
Yes. Okay, so let's go back to your dilemma with your daughters. And let's say they do come home and say, I'm really into this acid rock band.
Right.
Or let's say they say, I have discovered the joys and beauty of 80s heavy metal glam rock.
Oh, yes.
They're listening to Motley Crue and AC/DC and this kind of stuff, and they want
Whitesnake.
They're in Whitesnake, and they're in band.
Stryper.
And Stryper.
Can't help myself.
And they're in band, and they say, I want to buy a drum set, and I want to start a band.
And not only that, Dad, I want to go see Whitesnake next week in concert.
Right, and I want you to take me.
Right.
The Whitesnake reunion tour.
That's right.
It's going to be in Seattle.
It's going to be in Seattle.
It's going to be a Key Arena.
Right. And I need you. I need someone to take me. I'm 14. I can't really go to Whitesnake on my own.
Yeah.
The answer is no.
Okay.
Here's your Uncle Pfeiffer. Uncle Todd Pfeiffer.
Uncle Todd will take you.
That's right.
Okay, so
I unfortunately think the answer is yes, because I go 80s butt rock. It's positive, right?
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to go around saying she's my cherry pie, but there's
Yes.
some value in it, right?
Okay.
And obviously, she's turned out to be a very skilled drummer, so.
So we're not talking about, I mean, it's a separate topic and it's a subtopic of this. We're not necessarily talking about things where our children want to get into things that are dangerous,
Yeah.
or do not fit in
I've watched a lot of Charlton Heston, Dad. I think guns are for me.
Right. Watch a lot of, get into a lot of content that we would not necessarily approve of just from a standpoint of our belief system.
Right.
We're talking about just, I'm interested in this. I want to do it more. It's fine. It's legal. It's approved, but you don't like it.
Yuck.
So what you're saying is, do you feel like you would have a bigger struggle than your mother did? I'm sensing the answer is yes.
Oh, I don't really have a parenting answer for this because it always comes down to me for like parenting tolerance levels and what I'm able to do.
Right.
I give you a small slice of it. Maddie and Kayleen, they love Shopkins. They're little cute little figurines that go around.
Right.
And Maddie walked up to me on vacation last week and said, "Dad, can you play Shopkins with me?" I'm like, "I've got nothing to offer you here, kid." And what she wants me to do is she wants me to sit down and go, "Hi, I'm a little Shopkin little thing." And they love it, right? Especially when I do the crazy dad voice or whatever. But I'm like, my tolerance for it is all of maybe 30 seconds and I'm done.
Okay. But that's something that we do as parents when they're little, particularly. We sort of do little things with them for short periods of time.
Right, but to go see a Whitesnake concert, I feel exactly the same way. Right?
Yeah, a little longer.
I'm not really sure I want to sit down for 3.5. I don't even know how long concerts. I saw Huey Lewis in the News. That was about it.
Okay.
Right?
Right, and part of it, I think, is, and this is me psychoanalyzing a little bit, but part of me is...
I gotta know, how much of this have you done yourself? Like, how many things have you done that you didn't want to do, that you went, man, this is just a great parent decision, I want to encourage this?
That's hard to answer. I don't feel like... my interests and my kids' interests have mostly aligned, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are they as passionate about it? Not necessarily. Like, we're a sports family. You know that. We've talked about this in the podcast.
Yep.
We watch a level of sports. I would say Meg, my youngest, is probably least into it sometimes. But for example, if we're sitting there watching a baseball game and we've kind of got it on the background, we're doing other stuff at the same time, she might be sitting there, but she might also be sitting in the chair with a book.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't expect her to be sitting there glued to the TV watching this. I think the closest thing sometimes has been, for example, Jonathan likes watching sports. He'll watch sports with me, but he likes other sports that I'm not interested in sometimes, like auto racing or, dirt bikes or stuff like that. There have been times where he has said, "Oh, let's watch this," and I'll say, "I don't really want to watch that. Let's watch the football game." It's
this
still within his
sphere. Not really a problem that you've actually really faced then.
No, not on that level. No.
Right.
I have not had my daughter say to me, "Please take me to a Taylor Swift concert."
Right. Well, here's the thing. Well, maybe it came up here. Did one of them say, "Hey, Dad, I need you to help me with my ballet class. Please get your tutu on and..."
No.
Right?
Well, okay, I'll give you one. So, Jonathan he's into Star Wars, which I'm into as well. He has been into, not deep into the cosplay culture, But, for example, he has built a Mandalorian helmet and some armor out of cardboard.
Sure.
I have zero interest in this.
Right.
Now, I've helped him a couple of times with materials and advice on what to use and how to build it and that sort of thing. But I'm not necessarily doing it enthusiastically. And I think part of it is it's an interesting question of sustainability. Like you talked about the Shopkins thing, if your kids want to sit there and play Shopkins. I guess I'm assuming, I could be wrong, but I'm assuming that they will move on from the Shopkins at some point.
Sure. Actually, at this phase, there seems to go through 6-month phases of stuff.
Yeah.
Right now, they haven't really locked in on that. This is the thing I like to do.
Jonathan is in high school, and he's never been to like a Comic-Con or anything like that. He's talked about it. And so my question is more about what's sort of the long term of this? Like, is this something that he's really into?
Right.
And I think that's where it gets tricky as well, is when you're talking about, you talked about your patience and your sustainability, like your time. You can sit there and play for a couple minutes, but you wouldn't want to necessarily go to a concert for 3 hours. The other angle of this is cost.
Yep.
So, for example, he's working on this outfit and that sort of thing. I mean, it's different when you say, okay, you want to make a costume. Here, go around the house and find whatever you can find and just sort of put together. He wants to go online and order like this moldable foam that he can cut and put together. He wants to order pieces, which the cost starts to add up a little bit.
Sure.
And
I mean, to do really good cosplay, you need the right materials.
You do. That's where it gets complicated for me, at least in my phase in the future, where I start to say, all right, is this really something that you're going to keep doing? Is this something that you're going to spend a bunch of money on right now, and then a year from now, you're going to all of a sudden, because you're getting deeper into high school, all of a sudden just ditch it? Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally does. I've got, it's like I got friends that have kids that are into. I got a friend in particular who's got a kid who's into violin, right?
Yes.
And she's been playing violin for a very, very long time. In the scope of her 16 years, right, 17 now. I think about 2 years ago they purchased her some outrageously priced violin, right? We're nearing the thousands of dollars type violin, right?
Right.
Not the rental, not the Canella Keys special that we went to the violin store and I thought, wow, that is in my brain, and I'm not being, that's their deal. And as I recall, everything kind of panned out, but I thought to myself, that is a huge investment and risk in a teenager.
Sure.
Right? To sit down and plop that kind of dollars into something that, well, she'd been playing for quite some time, right? The other thing about the Mandalorian outfit, as a parent now, I'm like, what's the benefit? Violin, at the end of the day, it's a big win-risk scenario. They could have this amazing skill for the rest of their life along with this amazingly beautiful violin that you bought them. The Mandalorian outfit, yeah, there's a lot of creativity, and I'm not trying to dog on science fiction. I can't believe I'm saying any of this, but of course my parenting instincts kick in, and I say, yeah, we spent $2,000 on this Mandalorian outfit that he's going to outgrow. He's certainly never going to wear this to school, right? Right. Because that's not how you attract the ladies.
Right.
Well, maybe some ladies.
Yeah. Ladies at conventions.
Right. But, yeah, so it gets really weird there. And then, my level of investment, it's monetary along with my interest. If Jonathan was choosing to go do Mandalorian stuff with me, I'd be totally into it, right?
Right.
And then my wife would be reeling us back in, saying, whoa, why are we spending $5,000 on a real-life jetpack, right? Well, because Boba Fett, right?
Right.
So, But then again, at the end of the day, too, it's just strictly entertainment. At least with the Whitesnake thing, if she's watching Whitesnake and learning how to play drums, she's building a real good character thing, right? There's some character growth happening there. They're developing a skill. They're honing a skill that they'll really benefit from the rest of their life, right? I'm an amazing drummer.
Right.
If she gets out of work, she can be on the street corner drumming for money.
Well, and I think you have these breakpoints as a parent because you've got your girls at home and you're spending the bulk of your time with them.
Yep.
And so their time is your time and your time is their time. And so that's going to overlap at some point. And so it's only natural that you would try to share some interests so that you enjoy the time together and you build a bond. As they get a little older, they start to get into things that maybe you're not interested in. And that's okay. That's all right. It's all right that they are. I mean,
what's the mistake? Is the mistake saying you're interested in drums, you want to go to a Whitesnake concert, I think it's garbage, so tough luck?
I think there's a couple of mistakes. I think one, you can have a mistake where you try to have this forever alignment. We're a sports family. We're all going to watch sports. You're going to enjoy sports. We're going to the baseball game, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Now, the flip side of that is there are times when I think we've gone to stuff where one member of the family is just not that into it. And at that point, then you're saying, okay, this is not about the activity. This is about us spending time together.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you go to a concert, whether you go to a baseball game, whether you go for a walk, whether you go out to dinner.
Star Trek convention,
we're just trying to spend some time together. So
yes, because I guess you're right, because that's what my mom remembers.
Yes.
I hung out with my son in Spokane for the weekend on something he totally enjoyed.
Right. And I can say, as a kid, I remember my dad taking me to sports contests of various. He took me to Mariners games and he took me to Sonics games because he knew that was important to me. I knew then that it wasn't as important to him.
Huh.
But he knew it was important to me, so he took me. Now, I mean, he likes baseball games some. He watches the Mariners some now. He's interested, but he's not a huge diehard fan.
Your dad loves being a doctor.
He does.
That's his gig. I mean, like if you know anything about your father, it's the fact that he loves that hospital and he loves what he does, right?
Yeah, and he loves keeping bees, and I mean, so, but I always, when you look back, I know that my interest in sports exceeded his. He knew that was important to me. So, and that's something that I appreciate, and that's something that I sort of keep and try to mirror with my kids. It doesn't mean that I'm always going to say, oh, sure, let's do whatever you want, because I think that's the other mistake, is to sort of say, okay, I'm going to sacrifice everything that I'm into so that we can focus on whatever you want to do at the time. Because that's the dilemma as a parent. We're still a person, and we still have interests, and it's okay for us to enjoy them. I mean, as our kids get older and you say, hey, do you like Star Trek? You want to do Star Trek? You want to watch some Star Trek? And they kind of go, no, I'm not really into that. Well, it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy it. You can still say, well, I'm gonna enjoy this. This is my thing.
Yes. Whew. I'm just trying to think of all sorts of dynamics. I mean, we could reverse this too. My dad loves hiking. He is a total outdoorsman. And he started taking me hiking when I was 11 or 12, and I hated every minute of it. And by the time I was 16, I said I never want to hike with you again, because I was 16.
Right.
And it was very hurtful, and it hurt him a great deal. But what happened over time was I realized how much he valued it, and how much a great activity it is.
Right.
And actually, he taught me a number of skills of being out there. One of them was just endure it. And if you have endurance in this, you'll get great payoff, right? You get to the top of whatever mountain, right? If you just push hard enough. But I didn't figure that out until I was 37.
Sure.
And that's a bummer. But it's kind of reversed. Like, I'm going to, basically, it's like, I'm going to take my interest and just shove it in your face, right? Because there's the reverse there. Like, you're going to hike whether you like it or not, and you're going to learn from this.
Right.
And at the point, by the time I was 16, I resented him for it.
Sure.
But at the same time, I was learning a lot of great outdoorsman skills that today I use all the time. And in actuality, my father and I don't hike that much because I think in the back of his mind, he's like, he doesn't really want to hike with me. That's just family issues, right?
Right.
But at the same time, it's kind of like that reverse thing. I could look at my girls and say, you will like Star Trek. You're going to watch it because I watch it. And, you know, this is what we're going to do. To the point where they're just resenting me along with the show.
Well, and the other thing, too, is, you know, I go back to, you know, my dad taking me to baseball games. I don't remember him ever complaining. I don't remember him ever saying anything that said that he didn't want to do that.
Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic too.
If he didn't, he never shared it. And again, this is just my own analysis. I suppose I could ask. I think I've asked him before, but yeah, I think he again said, "Hey, this is important to my son. It's a solid activity. We'll go do it."
Yep.
If I don't love every minute of sitting there for a couple hours at a baseball game, such is life.
You know, it's interesting. That's a great point because I don't think my mother. I mean, it wasn't just the Star Trek convention. It'd be like, "Mom, you won't believe it, but I discovered something about this new Star Trek that's coming out," and I would tell her about it, or I'd tell my dad about it, and they would always listen, absorb it. Right. I can tell you, it's the last thing. I mean, I never, again, you know, you get that sense as a kid, like, this is not real information that they wanted, right? Like, they weren't seeking it out. When I walked in the door, they're like, Dave, you got any new Star Trek information? Why, indeed I do, right? I was always just sharing it, and they never looked at me like, yeah, shut up. You know, it was, okay, yeah, that's really great, Dave. I'm glad to hear it.
Well, I'll give you one more piece that you may have already experienced, but you'll experience more as you get older, is you start to have split interests, particularly as the kids age and they get more established in their patterns. So, for example, recently, Meg, my youngest, we went and visited some friends this summer, and they have chickens, and Meg got inspired. She wanted to come home and build a chicken coop and get a couple chickens. We have some other friends in the neighborhood that have chickens, and I had some interest in it. I knew that if we did it, I was probably going to do the bulk of the work, just because we're talking about a little bit of construction and doing some research online and, you know, maintaining timetables and stuff like that. So, but I was semi-interested, and I wanted to, you know, I wanted to encourage. It's a good thing. It's solid, good hobby. My son was totally indifferent. Could not care less about doing chickens. He helped out a little bit, just because he's a social kid, and he sort of wanted to, you know, he likes to pound nails and stuff like that. My oldest daughter was opposed, just because we were gonna park this coop under their window, and she didn't want these chickens to wake her up.
Right.
And then my wife she gave a begrudging approval.
Sure.
Like, she wasn't opposed to the idea in general, but was sort of like, I don't know, do we really want to do this? Do we want to add another thing to our life? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I've got a real mix there. I've got two people that are sort of I've got one that's a no, I've got one that's a yes, and then I've got me. Was leaning more towards yes.
Yes.
So then you sit there and go, all right, are we doing this project or not?
Yeah.
There's like 1.5 of us that's into it out of 5.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, and we did. We did. And we built it, and it's fine, and it's good, and, you know, it's become part of our routine. And again, myself and Meg spend the bulk of the time. Jonathan ignores it. Meg, you know, Emma went off to school anyway, and my wife is back there a little bit, but not a ton. And that's okay. And that's all right. That's totally fine, because you can have this mix of different things. So there you go.
No, I think that's the upside of it, and embracing some of those activities, but I just don't see myself becoming a big Whitesnake fan.
Well, again, if as they get older, yeah, you can take Jonathan to Comic-Con.
Comic-Con. I'd be delighted to.
I will take your daughters to a White Snake revival concert.
Okay. Where can you follow us, Todd?
You can follow us on Twitter, Parent Mistakes. We love followers on Twitter. Please tweet at us or follow us. You can like our Facebook page. We've got a few more followers these days. Parenting Mistakes. And you can email us, parentingmistakes@hotmail. You can support us on Patreon with your nickels and dimes. And you can find the rest of our podcasts on iTunes and Podomatic and YouTube. And coming soon, something Google-ish, yes? Google
I think
Play,
so.
right?
Yeah. Yep.
Working on
Yeah,
that.
I was looking at that RS feed, so, yep. Don't need to get to the technicalities. Well, you usually have the closing statement, so what is it this time?
Oh, I was going to go with more individual self-promotion. And you can buy...
yeah. Please tell me.
And you can buy my book. I wrote a book on business ethics called Business Ethics, The Search for an Elusive Idea, which is on Amazon in print and Kindle editions.
Nice.
And with that, we are out.